Hello, everybody. Pete here. I know, it's been a while. A lot of things have happened since the last podcast. I get it. I'm actually on my commute right now, which is not illegal because I'm not holding the phone. I'm just sort of talking, and the phone is just sort of on the dashboard, sitting there, recording. So the conversation continues with this whole U.S. soccer business. And one of the things that I've noticed in this whole process is the divide between the grassroots clubs and the more quote-unquote corporate clubs. There's a lot of cities where there's kind of a disconnect, I guess, for lack of a better term. Chattanooga is the big example, and that episode is coming with some of the people that are part of that supporters group. Chattanooga SC, obviously one of the staple clubs of the NPSL, which is an amateur league. USL League One is created with this whole new system that's being put together on the professional side of things. They decide to make their own club instead of actually just investing in the club that's already there. Even where I'm from, in the Hartford area, there's Hartford Athletic that's coming, which I'm super excited about, but there is that group of people that want to support Hartford City FC, and that's it. But one of the places that there is a similar situation, there is a very popular amateur club in Greenville FC. The attendance numbers were really good. Another new USL League One club, Greenville Triumph, is coming in, but there's no blowback. And I was kind of intrigued about that. You know, there's this whole divide going on nationwide. But to be honest, Greenville is just one of those places where that's not happening. So I wanted to find out what exactly is going on in the city of Greenville with soccer support as a whole, but mainly with that. So I was able to talk to Joseph Bright, who's a member of the Reedy River Riot, the supporters group that has been created for Greenville Triumph. I honestly thought it was a really good conversation, really enlightening about how things are done around there. But, bear with me. It's been a while. The audio isn't exactly Ed and Jack level from episodes 1 and 2, but there is a lot of background noise because I'm literally in a subway recording this. I had to push back the date a couple of times on them, and I needed to get it done because I want to get this thing going on a regular basis. But yeah, at the same time, a little under the weather, so it's going to be a very nasally episode. And by the way, if you want to go through a drinking game, per se, you know, one that really makes you feel like you're going to die, take a shot every time I say "in terms of," because after listening to the episode when editing it, that kind of happens a lot. Sort of my bad. I'll try and fix that for next time because, you know, professionalism is key. In any case, we march on. Great line of episodes coming for you. Some of the supporters all across the country. I'm learning so much about this sport and the culture of this sport in America. But today, all about Greenville. Greenville FC, Greenville Triumph, Reedy River Riot. This is Between the Sticks. I'm Pete. Let's rock and roll. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I guess to begin, starting off with Greenville as a city itself, because, you know, from the outset, I'm calling you from Connecticut, you know, from third person, it seems like not the first city you would expect to have excitement for soccer coming to town. For a little background, you know, that I'm aware of at least, I mean, in Greenville, it's very Clemson football. It's very, you know, on the political side of things. I know Trey Gowdy is your congressman.
Unfortunately,
which,
yes.
For those that aren't familiar. Oh, it's unfortunately,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, in terms of on the outset, it's not exactly the city you would expect to have that much excitement in terms of soccer, but just to sort of give an idea what kind of city Greenville is from a first-person perspective, and what kind of things to introduce the city for those that maybe aren't familiar with the area.
So with Greenville, it does kind of get a bad rap. It is old school, Southern, kind of Bob Jones dominated for a long time, very conservative, but recently, and I'd say probably in the last 15, 20 years, it's really exploded. We're on all the lists of the, top places to move to in the country, the top places to live in America. And so between that and BMW, Michelin, all these companies that have brought jobs in, our population has exploded, and it's brought a lot of, out-of-town people that are a lot more interested in soccer and interested in kind of modernizing the city in a lot of ways, which has been nice. Our downtown's been completely revitalized. It's beautiful down there now, whereas 20 years ago you wouldn't have went down there if you had to. So it's a city on the rise, and it's not just the city as well. Greenville's kind of a part of a larger metropolitan area with kind of two cities on either side of it. So really between the three cities, you have about 500,000 to 1 million people. So there's definitely room there for a soccer scene to grow. And really starting with the 2010 World Cup and on through, especially 2014 and then on to now, it hit like a wave. It's been nice.
Now, is that, in terms of your background, are you born and bred from Greenville? Have you
I'm actually from the next town over. I'm from Spartanburg.
Okay, gotcha.
Which is it's the next city over. It's a little bit smaller, but yeah, I'm from the metro area.
Okay, yeah. So I guess before sort of the excitement from the 2010 World Cup, do you seem like there was any sort of outlet for soccer beforehand? I know Clemson had a couple of titles for men's soccer in the 80s, but was there really any sort of outlet for soccer fans before that? Or
they tried. We had I'm not sure if it was professional or semi-pro team back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, but it only made it a couple of seasons and folded. So really outside of going to a college game or a high school game, you had no outlet for soccer in Greenville.
Okay, yeah. Because it seems like that. It's, a lot of these places that maybe didn't have an outlet in the past, it was sort of that era of, Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, and just sort of exploded exponentially from there, which is kind of interesting. But, I guess...
Clint Dempsey, who went to Furman in Greenville. So
that's true.
There's a little synergy there, yeah. So
for you're somebody that grew into soccer a lot earlier than 2010 then, right? You're somebody that's...
Yeah. Oddly enough, I picked it up when I was 12, which I know is way late, amongst everybody else, but I picked it up. My friends were playing, and they were like, hey, what can you do? And I was like, I play shortstop for the baseball team. And they're like, well, cool, go sit in the goal. Like, you can use your hands. I'm done. Like, let's go.
That's
so
awesome.
I played it from there on out.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of the people that you're kind of surrounded by now with the Reedy River Riot, some of the people that you have been building this supporters group with, is it a lot of those people, or is there a lot more people that you notice that either came from other places and want to instill a soccer culture, or somebody, or the people like you where they've been born and raised in the place?
I think especially amongst the leadership of the group, it's a nice blend of people that are from the area and from out of town, and really from all over. We got one guy from Atlanta, a couple guys from Massachusetts, and then we've got some people from the area too. And then a lot of us kind of have previous supporters group experience, whether it be with American Outlaws or doing stuff for Atlanta United or New England Revolution or other things throughout the years. So a lot of us have been in it for a while. And then some of the people that we have brought in are newer to the game, but they're really passionate about the area. And to me, you need that just as much as you need, a long time, love and knowledge of the game.
Okay, gotcha. So in terms of, let's go into the NPSL club too, because Greenville FC I know began last season, and
right.
Comparatively speaking to some of the other clubs in the league, that seemed to gain some pretty good numbers. Do you think that had a big effect at all on bringing the Triumph in as well? Or do you notice that's a lot more tribal? Because I know for me, there's a group of people in Hartford that are really excited about the Athletic coming in for the USL Championship, but there's a core group of people that are really passionate about solely the NPSL club, Hartford City, and the stuff that's going on too with Chattanooga and that whole butting heads in a way with Chattanooga FC versus the Red Wolves that are going to be coming into League One as well. Do you feel like Greenville FC was sort of a stepping stone, or do you think that there's going to be it might be a little bit of blowback, I guess, with a new team coming in?
Not at all. Both teams actually, the foundations for both teams were laid at about the same time. But because Greenville Triumph was going into USL League One, they didn't really have a home for last year, so they kind of got to play the long game a little bit, and Greenville FC joined right into the NPSL and took off. And they drew good numbers. It's a good group of guys that run that team. I've known Marco and those guys for a long time. So I hope there's no tribalism, and I don't think there'll be a lot of cannibalism either, just because the seasons don't overlap that much.
Fair, yeah.
So, and really amongst the supporters of both clubs, I personally haven't seen anything negative. I mean, we're all fans of the same sport, and a rising tide raises all boats. So, if both clubs are successful, that's better for everybody. It's better for the city. It's better for soccer in general. And I think where we got very lucky in Greenville is, unlike Chattanooga, we didn't have an out-of-town investor come in and do our professional club. The Irwins they're Greenville born and bred. They put a lot of money back into the city on top of soccer, so they have the area's best interest in mind.
Okay.
And I think that's going to help. It gives an authenticity that I think maybe Chattanooga Red Wolves doesn't have.
That's true, yeah, because that's what kind of fascinated me and why I really wanted to talk to people in Greenville is that, there have been a lot of those conversations with, especially League One being created and some of the clubs that were coming in for USL. There was some blowback from NPSL supporters and things like that, a lot of those clubs, but Greenville, I didn't feel like from the soccer Twitter or anything like that there was as much conversation in that regard. It seems like, and it definitely sounds like it's because of the homegrown atmosphere of the whole situation. It's not as much of a problem necessarily as people bring Chattanooga out to be, or where a couple of people in Hartford are sort of trying to create, which I think is a good thing. I agree with you 100%, is that, the more clubs that are put together, the more sort of competition that there is, the better for all of us, really. I'm sure you and I can both agree that.
Yeah. The more places and more venues you have and the more outlets you have, for players, for fans, for whatever, it's better for everybody.
Oh, yeah. And for me, especially being able to visit Nottingham, a place where you've got a League Two and a championship club basically on either side of a river, I'd love to see that in somewhere in America. And it seems like Greenville is one of those places where that could be created, really.
Oh, yeah, and I hope so, because I'm not going to stop going to Greenville FC games. We had a blast going to those games last year.
Yeah.
So I hope there is a lot of crossover, and I hope there's cooperation. I would like the teams to, if it's possible at some point, to share resources and to, help each other out. Yeah, that's going to be better for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So, I guess going into the club itself, you had mentioned the actual people that were behind the Triumph. What really, in your process here, what kind of stuff, I guess, how did you know about when Greenville Triumph was going to be created? What was your backstory on sort of getting the people together to create Reedy River Riot? I mean, what kind of stuff were you involved in that regard?
All right, so chapter 1, page 1, we started a petition in Greenville. It was literally a change.org petition to bring, USL to Greenville. And what we did was we just tried to get as many people to sign it as we could, and we got, don't hold me to it, I think we got 1,000 signatures on it. And then we presented it to the USL, and about two years ago, they had sent some of their representatives to Greenville to an American Outlaws event. We got to talk to everybody. He, toured the city, talked to the Chamber of Commerce. And then I think from there it was just between the city and the league to find the right owner and to find somebody who would step up, that had the money and the resources to make a stable team and one that could survive. Because I think the scariest thing about starting a new league and having a new team is that, if you can make it through those first 3 or 4 years to really get the roots down, you can have long-term success.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us from Greenville are very, we've seen teams fail there before. We had the South Carolina Shamrocks, and like I said, I think they made it 3 years and went under. So, it was about finding the right owners. And then, once the Irwins stepped up, it ramped up, hit high gear, and, the team got created. Yeah, as far as the supporters group, we're a group of friends. We have been tailgating and going to games for years. We all love the sport. There was kind of a small core of us that started with American Outlaws. and then we brought in some other people from the city to help us out, and that's just kind of where it started from there.
Would you, is it a lot of crossover between American Outlaws in Greenville? Because the city itself has its own chapter, right?
Yeah, we have our own chapter.
Okay, yeah, so. That's what I figured. So is there a lot of crossover between the people that are running American Outlaws in the city versus the Triumph? Is it kind of the same people?
There is some crossover. I think there's 3 of us who are on the board of both.
Okay.
But that's not even half of the total Reedy River board. So, but there is, because we know how valuable a supporters group could be to a club. And, we really would like a supporters group to succeed with this new team. So, we were passionate about it. So we kind of got together and brought some other people in.
In terms of what you're seeing with the kind of infrastructure that they're planning on putting together, do you think that there's the amount of ambition from the owners and everything to put something together that can last really long? Personally,
yeah, I'm excited. I mean, they're talking about building a soccer-specific stadium in Greenville. If you would have told me that even 2 years ago, I would have called you crazy. The fact that we could have a place where, we could have our own stadium in town that's just mind-boggling. And I think that will help. It'll help establish an identity, and it'll give people a place to go and really call their own. And then once that gets going, I think it's going to be something that has long-term viability.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah. Have they given you a lot of input in terms of the architecture itself, or is it just sort of a...
Right now, I think it's still on the drawing board. I think they're trying to find the right location for it, So it's kind of still in its infancy. But even the fact that they're talking about it is more than I could have hoped.
That's true. Yeah, that is very true. It's kind of interesting with how League One is going to be set up. There is sort of a gray area of... Because the main thing, from what it seems like from my perspective here, is they really want to bridge that gap between semi-pro versus professional. And, it's kind of interesting seeing how everything's being panned out from the actual clubs that are involved with it. You got 5 former USL clubs, a couple of them being reserve teams for MLS clubs, a couple coming from the PDL, and 5 that are sort of from the ground up, like the Triumph is. It's sort of interesting how everything is being panned out, really. From your perspective, do you feel like everything... are you going to see a lot more of maybe homegrown players from the city, a lot more people from Clemson coming in after going through either what's going to be Division II, kind of PDL, and through college and leagues like that? Is it sort of... What are your expectations, really, coming into this in terms of how the team is going to be put together, where they're going to be bringing players from? Because the League One, it is kind of, I love the concept. I love that they're sort of bridging everything together now into a 3-tiered format in the USL's case. But kind of what are you guys expecting from the whole atmosphere and from the club itself? What kind of players you'll be bringing in, that kind of thing?
I'm hoping that we get a lot of homegrown players. I think between the colleges and then about a 100-mile radius, there's probably a good pool of talent there to pull from. And I think a lot of guys who might get overlooked because they played at a smaller college, you're playing at a Winthrop or an Anderson College, you may get your chance, to prove yourself. And, you come into League One, you show how good you can be, and then you can take the next step from there. Conversely, with the prevalence of academies now, the huge one being here in Atlanta, a lot of those guys who are 17, 18 maybe aren't ready to go play in Division II. Maybe they can come to League 3, get some experience, and get some younger players, a little older than them, but they're not playing against 30-year-old men.
Yeah.
Either. Yeah. Where they can come and get minutes, get quality coaching, and continue their development as they, go up the ladder in their career. So I think it'll be a nice blend, of local kids. I'm hoping that we have a younger team, just because you want to see the guys kind of move on from Greenville. For as much as I love Greenville, I don't want to have a player that's played there for 10 years. You want to see the guys from your team go up and be successful, maybe one day get to MLS, hit that ultimate goal. So, yeah, I'm hoping that it's a young squad that's, hungry, ready to kind of prove themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I'm noticing that now with some of the UConn players that I watched during my time. I just graduated from there and was in their supporters group over at UConn, and seeing guys like Kyle Aaron, who made it big in MLS, was able to show success there, and are now starting Europa League matches and things like that, saying that came from your town, or in my case, your college, that says a lot. It brings you more invested into the game a little bit, I feel like.
Oh, for sure. For sure, because they're your guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, it's, unless we do a really, really good job over here in Hartford, it's not really likely that the Athletic's going to make it to MLS unless there's a promotion relegation format put in place. And, while it's nice to dream, it's nice to, I really want to see something like that happen. You do have to kind of remember the structure as it is right now. And, that being able to have that investment in a team you wouldn't expect, whether it be Besiktas in Kyle Aaron's case, or, having Kwame Awuha, who has just been at New York City FC for a couple of years. And, some of the guys that are coming in now, like Abdubaki John, I know, is somebody who just graduated from UConn that could very easily end up somewhere in the USL format or an MLS even. So, I can only imagine that's even better when you see somebody in, not necessarily your college, but in your club, in your city, being able to see stuff like that. So I'm excited for how that's put together for you guys. I'm
Yeah, and I hope it does give these guys, Clemson usually has a guy or two drafted in MLS every year. I hope that next, 3 or 4 guys on that team will, this will give them an outlet where they can come in and play. And, some guys are late bloomers. You may hit a diamond somewhere in there.
Oh, yeah.
So,
absolutely. So I guess for League One as a league, are there any specific teams or other clubs that you're kind of eyeing as ones that are going to sort of mirror you or be your local derby in a way? Because I know it's very East Coast based, the amount of clubs that are in right now, but are there any that you're sort of eyeballing as the big rivalry, or is it just sort of enjoy the moment?
Not really yet. Chattanooga is going to be the closest team. I know that, Chattanooga FC, when they came down to Greenville for the NPSL last season, they brought their fans and their huge flags and their huge drum, and there were a bunch of great guys. I know quite a few of them, but I don't think that supporters group is going over with the Red Wolves.
No,
so
not a chance.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that they'll quite have, there won't be a rivalry there. So that'll be okay. I don't think we need rivalries. Statesboro, I think, is the other. The Georgia Tormenta is the other, kind of close team. So, but that's still, you're talking 3.5 hours away.
Yeah. So it's more so just enjoy the moment, enjoy your club type thing.
Yeah.
Because
we're going to give hell to whoever comes in and plays us.
Yeah, that works.
And that's going to be it.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess moving on to the side of things in terms of the state of U.S. soccer. Since the last podcast I recorded, a lot has happened. Atlanta just became MLS Cup champs. Finally.
I'm finally getting my voice back, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. You said there were a couple of Atlanta supporters or people that are from Atlanta from your group. How are they feeling about the whole?
Yeah. Oh, we're pretty much the group top to bottom are Atlanta United fans. There were a couple of us at the game, and everybody else watching it back home at one of our home bars. So
that's awesome. Because I think in terms of the matchup itself for MLS Cup, I don't know how you felt about it, but those were, easily you're talking the two most passionate set of supporters in the league.
And Portland brought phenomenal fans to that team.
And they could have brought more. I mean, the amount that they were peddling to get more allocated tickets for Timbers Army, that whole environment in general was, it had to be one of, if not the greatest sight I think I've ever seen. Definitely in terms of two American clubs, I would argue that would be better than any sight that I've seen in any scenario, even, European League coming in or anything like that. That had to be the best. In terms of script writers, that would have been the best idea to make, but the fact that both clubs were on the up, they had the momentum, and they were both able to go against each other in the biggest site in American soccer, that I think hopefully can mean a really big turning point for domestic soccer in a way that I don't think any sort of big signing or anything like that could have ever created, because there were no DPs that sort of stood out from the quote-unquote retirement league side of things. There were no quote-unquote plastic fan kind of atmosphere. These were two groups of fans that were just passionate about their city and their league, or their club, I should say. Group of guys that on the field that really you didn't know about until they got to the club that they were in. Watching from down there, how did that feel watching the MLS Cup?
It was beyond my wildest expectations. I went to the first Atlanta United game in Atlanta. I live within walking distance of Mercedes-Benz Stadium now. So, to be able to go to something like that with 73,000 people, to have 1,000, fans coming from out of town and everybody be super nice, super accommodating, very gracious all the way around, it blows my mind. The times I've been in England to watch matches, like, opposing fan bases don't mix. You get off at different subway exits, the away fans get kind of brought around the backside of the stadium because they're, you saw what happened between Boca and River. It gets pretty.
It could very
intense.
easily happen in England still too.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it. It's not pleasant. So to be able to have the Portland fans come into our tailgate and, we all just kind of break bread and drink together and enjoy the sport. Like, I think it's something, if that's the American legacy for soccer, I think it's great. To be able to be passionate without the BS and without the violence. And, we can razz each other for, 90 minutes and then we're all, friends afterwards.
I love it. Because, there was a bit of worry about that too with, first LAFC game coming in. The 3-2-5-2 did the classic Mexico chant that we will decide not to say. And, there was talk about, I forget whether it was a player or somebody in the fans that was kind of pulling the Raheem Sterling during one of the U.S. Open Cup matches. Some of the stuff that was going on early in the season, he did get kind of worried that it was more so veering towards that side of things. And
the dark side,
So
we don't need that.
I mean, the fact that it's come to this point where everybody's sort of in a more kumbaya atmosphere, I mean, it's so good to hear, because I've heard about that from the people that I've talked to in the different European cities that have big rivalries and things like that, and some of the violence that will go through, which, when you have that level of passion for decades upon decades, you don't know that sort of, I mean, the culture is a little bit different, so I'm not going to be, on a high horse and say, how dare they and all that, but, like, just the fact that we've created our own way of doing things, where it's not just about supporting your club, it's just supporting the sport as a whole, and with how soccer culture has changed through the years. I love that sort of aspect of the game, really, and I think that's why it turned on to me. Not just because I'm one of those 2010 people. I'm one of the people that sort of got into the sport through the 06 and 10 World Cup and sort of panned out from there, and just seeing that growth in a way that's healthy. So I'm sure you can agree, being a fan of the sport for a lot longer than I have.
Yeah, I have, and I mean, it is nice. For one, it has amazed me of how cool Atlanta United is in this city.
Yeah.
It's I grew up 2 hours from here. It just, you had your Braves fans and you had your Falcons fans and you had the people that show up to Hawks games and you have the NHL team that they lost. But it seems like everybody, like Atlanta United is for everybody. And I never thought I'd see that in Atlanta. And I mean, I'm sure it helps that they're winning, and all of that. But, between the billboards and the branding, and I mean, you see people out on the street in the middle of NFL football season, in the middle of college football season, wearing their Atlanta United shirts. They're packing 55,000 into the Mercedes-Benz on a college football Saturday in Georgia. In Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Georgia had a home game. So it's amazing to me to watch. And, I mean, it surprised me how cool and inclusive it's become, because you don't have to be of a certain, fan base, or you don't have to be of a certain socioeconomic status or whatever. We're all there supporting the team together, and it's been very nice. And there's a camaraderie there.
Yeah, especially because, I have friends that are in Columbia, and all they talk about basically is just the rivalry between USC and Clemson. That was pretty much it in terms of South Carolina sports. So, I'm really hoping that this sort of generates a good precedent for the future with Greenville coming in. And there have been murmurs about Columbia getting a team. Charleston Battery, obviously, has been a thing for a long time.
Yeah, they're one of the old guard of USL.
Yeah,
I went to school in Charleston. I love the Battery. They really showed people how it was done. I think it was the first soccer-specific stadium in the South, if I remember correctly, was in Charleston.
Definitely one of, if not the first. I'd have to look that up, but yeah.
But I mean, so they've been at it for a long time, and they've had, a large run of success. Would I like for one day Greenville to make it up to League Two where we could play Charleston? That would be phenomenal, because that's, that would be good for the state and it'd be good for the sport.
Absolutely, yeah. Kind of going more into the sociological side of things, you said you were one of the unfortunately in terms of the people representing you in Congress and stuff. And, Trey Gowdy being your congressman, a little background on him, sort of the one of the fathers of the Benghazi investigation and things like that. Very conservative-minded guy. Do you feel like maybe the sociological side of things, does that come into play at all when trying to entice people in the South? Because I know Atlanta's very progressive for the Southeast. You were saying Greenville has sort of had changes over the years. Do you see a lot in terms of people that are more on the conservative side of things coming in, or do you think there maybe is a bit of an Achilles heel on that? Just maybe on a regional side of things, not necessarily in Greenville.
I don't think so. I think that the advantage that, soccer will have, and especially in Greenville, for one, the Irwins they're old school Greenville. They've been here a long time, 30 years. They've built their businesses in town. They have deep roots to the city, so I don't think they'll get a lot of pushback from your more traditional people in town. And also, if it's, I know one thing that Greenville FC did a very good job in was making the games very kid-friendly, very fan-friendly, where you can come in, you can bring your small children, you can come to a match, and I'm sure Greenville Triumph will do the same thing. So, it's just getting people out.
Yeah.
And I think once you come out, you see that it's a fun experience, come to a tailgate, grill some hot dogs, hang out, and then go watch the match. I don't think there's nothing there that will turn off somebody as long as you can just get them in the building. And that's what you hope, is that it can be that haven where everybody puts their ideologies aside and everybody, kind of comes together. And I think one thing that Atlanta being so successful right now will help with is that Atlanta's kind of made it okay to like soccer in the South. It's not... They've kind of ended that stigma of, this is kind of soccer's not a big deal. Soccer sucks in America.
Yeah.
I got 73,000 friends on Saturday that just said otherwise. So I think it's broken that stigma, especially in the South, that soccer can't survive here, because it can grow and it can thrive.
Absolutely.
And with demographics changing, you hope that it's a place where everybody can be a part of something.
I don't know about you, but it seems like every time the BBC wants to kind of go into soccer not being popular is a tailgate at an SEC football game. Like, I feel like that's the first thing that comes about that I've seen in some of the mini documentaries that'll come through. The only reason I say BBC is because that's the one that first comes to mind. Is I know they went to like an LSU tailgate and was asking people, how do you like soccer? And, you get the usual cliche stuff. So,
right.
It's good that there's that level of evolution. I mean, just seeing how people feel overall about the sport it's fantastic to see, really.
And I think, one thing that I know Atlanta United's done, and other teams do it too, and I think it's something that we're going to try to do in Greenville is implement tailgating as part of the fan experience.
Yeah.
It's something people are familiar with. It's something people associate with a sporting event. Show up an hour or two before, have a drink, hang out. I know for Greenville FC last year, we put the USA-France game on the TV. I brought my tailgating setup. We, hooked the generator up and put the game on. So we kind of want to get that football feel with a soccer match. And that's kind of bringing that Southern culture of, food and tailgating in with the game.
Yeah, and that brings sort of the American flair that not a lot of other countries have, which I think is fantastic. Creating our own identity and not just sort of piggybacking off of others, because obviously you can pick and choose, but you can never really, I so would love to be, because I'm one of the people that grew up sort of on the English side of things, the English soccer.
Right.
So,
same here.
For me, I'd love to be the one that sort of remakes all those English chants, but at the end of the day, that's not how things go all the time.
No.
I kind of learned that the hard way.
No, and if you're doing chants and things like that, they've got to be organic. They have to mean something to you, or else it won't mean something to everybody else, and it'll kind of come off as flat or disinterested.
No English Premier League club is going to sing "We Ready" in quite the same way as Footy Mob and all them.
No,
absolutely.
They can try, but it ain't going to work.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of U.S. soccer, Greg Berhalter just been hired as the new manager. I know the process more so than the man has been sort of the big thing that has gotten people a little up in arms in terms of supporters and things like that. What's the general sentiment for you guys, you feel like, in terms of finding the new manager, what kind of stuff he was talking about in his introductory phase and things like that? What's the overall mood there?
I mean, I can only speak for myself personally, but I'm not a fan of it. To me, it looks like you hired the COO's little brother to coach the team. And I mean, yeah, he's had some moderate success with Columbus, and they can say he didn't have a really good roster to work with, but I don't know. Nothing about his game excites me. His teams never score a lot of goals. They play defensive. They play a very defensive style of game, and to me, it's taken the U.S. team backwards instead of forwards.
So you're not really.
So, I don't want to see Pulisic and Tim Weah and Josh Sargent out there trying to play defense or just being stuck up there, on an island while we put, the other 10 behind the
That's
ball.
true. That is true. I mean, the big thing that people have been talking about, I know Alexi Lalas's last podcast, he was talking about, sort of the interest of, now that he's the manager, maybe putting Gyasi Zardes back in because of how much he's improved under his wing. And yes, he scored more goals, but you kind of get the sentiment that, and, we'll see how this pans out with guys like Pulisic and Sargent and things like that. Columbus hasn't really been necessarily the big offensive strong suit. When you think of the people that are up front.
You want the actual stat?
Yeah, go ahead.
Second least amount of goals scored in MLS this season, tied with Orlando.
There you go.
So only San Jose scored fewer goals this season than Columbus. Yeah,
that's true.
They made the playoffs with a negative goal differential.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. So, there has been a lot of talk of, because I know Berhalter was talking about putting a more offensive style into the game, and my hope is that he's going into this thing with more of a Belichick mind than, say, a defensive coordinator, to put things in parallels where you can make those adaptations by the people that you have. Because at the end of the day, I'm not just saying this as a fan, I want to have as many goals as possible type thing. It's just looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the U.S. national team in general. The offense is the strength. We have people that are... Yeah. Young guys, really exciting people in Sargent, Pulisic, and Weston McKennie and things like that, that can be a lot more offensive-minded, that can compete with the greatest in the world right now. So, hopefully it sounds like he wants to try and adapt, that he wants to put in a style that's a lot more in your face defensively, but also at the same time not afraid to go out there and score goals instead of the, just wait for the counterattack type thing. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but we'll see how it goes. With how the process was put together and what kind of connections the guy has, he's going to have scrutiny from day one.
Yeah. Well, I've said it since he was announced. I hate the hire until he proves me wrong.
There.
I hope he proves me wrong. As a U.S. fan, I hope that, I don't doubt his desire to be successful. I doubt his ability to be successful. So, I hope that, he proves me wrong. But to me, if you're gonna wait 14, 15 months to hire a coach, you have to give me something more than Berhalter.
Yeah.
Especially when the rumor was guys like Lopetegui were sniffing around and, guys that have legitimate chops and success at the highest level.
Tata Martino, where the rumor was he didn't speak enough English,
that is
definitely
the most garbage thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, from watching Atlanta play for the last 2 years, it scares me to death that he's going to Mexico.
Yeah.
Because you know what? True. Now instead of Miguel Almiron, who's a great player, he's got Chucky Lozano, who's a better player.
Oh, yeah.
Scored again today for PSV, by the way.
You know what? It might get to the point now. I think the USA-Mexico rivalry has gotten heightened a lot more because of this. Those first couple of matchups are going to be very exciting to see, and it's going to be, if the U.S. doesn't perform, then people might get cut off a lot earlier. Yeah. I mean, this could really throw the egg on the faces of a lot of people in the front office if this gets put together.
But the other problem is if the fans turn on him quick and his brother doesn't fire him, things could go really sour really quick.
It could. And, that's sort of the worry of a guy like Cordero being elected as the president of U.S. Soccer, is that he's a very internal guy. And I was thinking that the minute that they hire him is that, okay, so he's not, maybe the first people within the establishment that was on everybody's mind, but at the same time, that like a Kathy person is who I'm thinking of. I forget her last name. I'm sorry. was sort of the more conventional wisdom person to be considered, the next one in line for Sunil. But at the same time, everything's sort of been put in place where, yeah, it is going to be a lot more establishment-minded stuff. And, well, right now it's sort of a situation where it's sort of benefit of the doubt time and a bit more, yes, guilty until proven innocent in terms of the hires themselves, but, not as much pressure necessarily as there was right after the Trinidad and Tobago match. You still have those people that, the Ben Fast of the world, I like to call them the Oprah Relis, where, if there isn't a ground-up type of scenario, if there isn't a complete overhaul of U.S. soccer, then you're wrong type deal. There is that faction of supporters which really is passionate about sort of the ground game when it comes to soccer in America. So, you have that aspect of it. And
to me, I think that really we have to change the way we train kids.
Very true.
It's I'm not up for a complete overhaul of U.S. soccer because I know it'll never happen because there's money involved. But, we have to change how we train our kids from the age of 5 up. And that's, something that, I've talked about and I've heard from other people, about the steps that people, that U.S. soccer wants to take, but I don't know how far they've gone as far as implementing them and focusing less on because, a lot of Americans teams, Yossi Zardes is a perfect example. The players that come out of the U.S. are athletes. They're extremely fast. They're not very technical.
Right.
And, the way you beat a U.S. team is you pressure them, you force them to make quick decisions in tight spaces. We'll turn the ball over, you counter, we're done.
Yeah. And that's,
and it's focusing at a young age from, giving kids more touches, forcing them to make more passes, not playing 11 on 11 until you're 10, 11, 12 years old, focusing on small sides, tight fields, more intricate passing, making better decisions with the ball at your foot.
Yeah.
So that's really where U.S. soccer kind of needs to go to get away from a Yossi Zardes and more towards Christian Pulisic.
Yeah, very true. And just availability as well. And that comes with generating more funds and building the sport from the ground up. And, it's good that we have a surplus.
Pay to play.
Yeah, pay to play. I can't say that I know the books about it, but the sooner we can get rid of pay to play, the better. And just, that availability is so key that, it's going to be the Achilles heel as long as it's in place. But like I said, it all is about how they balance the books over at U.S. Soccer. And, sometimes you want to put investments on other things. And we'll see how it goes. I'm hopeful for the future, but like you say, it's there's still a lot of work to be done. For me, I'd like to say that there's hope where in some sort of light, whether it be some sort of agreement between MLS and USL or MLS simply buys out USL, that the new league system kind of paves the way for promotion relegation to happen. That's a happy medium for everybody, where there is that open structure, and at the same time, keeping everybody happy in terms of people that invested in the sport, invested in MLS, that have those contracts put in place that are sort of preventing some of this pro-rel stuff from happening. So
yeah, and rewarding failure is essentially what it amounts to. But yeah, and I'm hoping it's something that USL maybe takes the lead on. If they get a 2 or 3 tiered structure of saying, what, our best team from D3, they're going up to the second tier.
Yeah, and
we'll relegate 2 teams, and promote 2 teams a year on both sides, and maybe shows that these teams that get relegated, they're still surviving.
Yeah.
They're going to have to work their way back.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching Richmond Kickers this season, and I know Penn FC, there's some talk that they're going to be taking a hiatus this season and then going into League One in 2020. I'm going to be keeping an eye on those 2 clubs specifically because, I think the big stress test for a pro-rel system is a situation where you have a club that drops down league to league and whether or not they're going to be able to have the ability to bounce back.
Yeah.
So if those 2 clubs can prove that they can do that by generating talent and generating fans again and things like that, maybe not so much in the Richmond Kicker side of things, but I know Penn FC, it's kind of been wavering in terms of attendance numbers. If they can pass that stress test, I think let's do it. Full steam ahead down the Torpedoes. Let's get it done.
And I mean, I'm actually excited that Richmond's in the league because they're one of the old guard of minor league soccer in America. They've been around.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, they've won the U.S. Open Cup once or twice. I mean, they're an old team that's got a lot of history. So to have that team in the league, it gives it a little more legitimacy. But you're right, and I mean, from these MLS owners, I mean, I can understand that. Hey, I put $100 million into this team. I don't want to have to drop down, play in Charleston in front of 3,000 people, and then go out of business.
Yeah.
So
all about finding the happy medium at the end of the day. I mean, I'd love to be raw on the side of Pro Rel, but I think having conversations like this. I mean, I had Christian Polanco of the Cooligans on last episode, and he sort of opened some eyes of sort of why there is sort of a blowback when it comes to implementing Pro Rel from the side of things. So,
and a lot of it's franchising fees is a huge part of it. I don't know. I don't know what Arthur Blank played to get into MLS, but it was in the tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. So I mean, that initial investment, you don't want to put that on something that could flop in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, 150 million is the buy-in for an expansion club in MLS. I think it's around $7 million for USL Championship as it stands right now. I mean, I'm sure it's about maybe half that for League One. I don't know the exact buy-in for League One, but end of the day, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Just got to keep supporting and everything, and try not to get too disheartened maybe by the decisions of U.S. soccer, but be part of the solution, be part of offering improvements and things like that, not just, chuck the V's at everybody who's wrong necessarily.
Right.
And I think, what you guys are doing in the Southeast between your support with Atlanta and what you're trying to build right now with Greenville Triumph with the Reedy River Riot, I think is fantastic. So I guess social media for yourself, for the supporters group in general, any sort of contact information you want to bring out there for anybody interested?
We're Reedy River Riot everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow it all. I think it's reedyriverriot.com is our website. So you can go if you'd like to join. We'd love to have you, and we'll ship you a scarf.
All right, awesome to hear. And your podcast as well, if you want to go into that a bit.
It's Black Market Toast. It's two old, guys in their 30s and 40s talking about, movies, TV shows, and then just rambling on from there. We have a good time. It's one take, very little editing. It's literally a conversation. So, but it's fun. We've been at it for about 3.5 years. I'm actually recording a new episode tomorrow.
Awesome.
So.
Sounds good. All right, well, Joe, it's been good talking to you. Best of luck with everything down there. If I ever am able to visit, I'll definitely hit you up at some point. If you're ever in Connecticut, feel free to, it's mutual there. Feel free to let me know, and we can get you into all the stuff up here. So good talking to you.
I got to get up to New Haven and eat pizza, apparently. That's what everyone's telling me.
There you go. Apparently Portnoy finally picked up on that, the guy from Barstool.
Yeah.
So we might get a
Pizza
nice
capital
influx.
of America. So,
we might get a nice influx of Vineyard Vines as if we didn't need even more of that. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, good talking to you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Yeah, man. Good talking to you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Remember, the more people that add ratings, the better chances other people are going to see this. So, be sure to rate this 5 stars, leave a review on whatever podcasting service you found this on, screenshot this, put it on your Instagram story, continue this conversation along. And remember, I am looking for more people to come on the show, so if you're a member of an American Outlaws chapter, if you're a supporter for any sort of club, whether it be MLS, USL, Lower League, NCAA, maybe you're a supporters group for a club outside of the United States, I want to hear from you. So feel free to hit me up on Instagram at Between the Sticks Podcast or at my personal photography Instagram at Pete Garcia Photo. The more people that put their 6 cents in, I think the more diverse conversation that we have, the better this all comes together. Thanks again, everybody. Enjoy yourselves out there.